Hello, friends. It's that time again, and we're here. This is the Onocoffee's Coffee Q&A, the live stream that we do most Monday through Fridays. And we're back again with more ube, more Filipino desserts. This time we're back with something from a place called Gwenies in Rockville, which is where we started the week. We started the week off with Gwenies custard and ube cake, and now we're trying this Ube Loaf. So how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another Sunday Coffee Q&A. Hope you're doing well. If you have questions about what we're doing or about coffee or anything in general, feel free to put them in the comments or down below if you're watching after the show is live, watching it on the replay, whatever you want to call that. I'm Jay, your host, and today we're looking at this Ube Loaf. The Ube Loaf is a very interesting thing. It's basically like ube bread, right? Kent, how you doing, man? Good to see you. And so this is from Gwenies. Again, this is something my niece picked up for me over the weekend, and I just have been holding on to it, not eating it, because I wanted to share it with all of you. So now we can finally get into it. And basically, it's just a bread. It's a bread that has ube rolled into it. And like a tongju, kind of like shokupan, looks like they take the bread and they mix it, and then they kind of roll it, and then they put it into the mold, 3 separate loaves, and then they bake it all together. So of course, it becomes one big loaf, but that's kind of the basic approach to it. Looks kind of interesting. I've actually never had this before. This is my very first time trying this. So I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. So we're going to get into that. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. But we're going to be talking today also about a drink to go with this. And I was thinking today, what drink should we make? Should we go back to Americano? No, that's just too many Americanos. So I thought we should do something new. What would go well with the Ube Loaf? What would be nice? We saw that we had nice results with the with the cappuccino yesterday and the pie, the ube pie from Jollibee. So I thought, I was thinking maybe that might be a nice combination. Maybe something with milk. I was thinking macchiato. Right, macchiato is one of my favorite milk drinks in the world. But then I was like, I don't have any half and half cream. And for me, macchiato really wants to have the half and half cream so that you really get this extra milk fat. You get this extra body, extra silkiness, just a really extra drink. So I thought, well, I don't have any of that milk today, so we'll just go with Cortado. And Cortado is something that I've been drinking for quite a while. Maku, how are you doing? Good to see you. And Russell, how's it going? Good to see you as well. So Cortados are an interesting thing. So my relation with the Cortado goes back to the beginnings of my entry into coffee. And I've said in the past how young Turks, I was not quite a young Turk at the time. When I got into business, I was 30-something, 2002. I was 32 years old, 32, 33. No, 33. I think I was 33 years old. And I was still, I guess, relatively young, but I was getting into the business. And, I've said that when you learn a new pursuit, you're really into it. You're really enthusiastic. You're trying to absorb as much as you possibly can. And then you reach a point where you've absorbed enough, a modicum of information. You haven't learned enough, but you've learned a little bit. But you've learned enough to become dangerous, where you start to pontificate. Now you feel like you have some grasp of knowledge. So therefore, you want to start to pontificate about your knowledge as though it is absolute and sacrosanct, right? I think that's the general progression of people when they're really into something. And I was like that. Back then, we used to participate in a forum called Coffee Geek. I believe the website still exists today. Back then, the outlets for coffee information was very small. There was there was an old Usenet forum that was available, /coffee or something like that. And I never really did that one. That was like for hardcore coffee geek enthusiasts, right? And then there was the coffeegeek.com forums that had like a professional section. So I participate in that a lot. And if they still have their archives, you can go and do some research and put the channel title Onocoffee into it. And you'll see me pontificating about all kinds, bloviating about all kinds of ridiculous theories. Myself, James Hoffman was there, some of the famous people of YouTube or just in coffee, we're all there in those early days, bloviating about God knows what kind of nonsense we were talking about. But one of the things we were talking about was Cortado. And Cortado is a drink that is a smaller milk drink, smaller than a cappuccino, that has origins in Spain, which is why it's called Cortado. And I forgot all the details that I knew about it then, but I was like, back then you want to prove that you know something, right? So you go to you go to coffee shops and you make these orders that are just stupid, like, can I have a Cortado, please? And then when they give you something that's a Cortado there, then you sit there and you bash on it. You're like, well, this is not real. This is not right. This is completely wrong. Blah, 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 blah. You know what the deal is, right? So that was me at Starbucks bashing about Starbucks. Well, Starbucks, they don't know the Cortado. Of course they don't know the Cortado. They're Starbucks. Why would they even know those things, right? But hence is the situation when you're young or younger in the business and you think you know what you know, but you really don't know anything at all. So that's kind of how Cortado starts. And so what is a Cortado? Cortado is basically a milk drink that is smaller than a cappuccino, that has less foam than a cappuccino. And that's pretty much it. There's not too much. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. I'm sure if you talk to certain people, they're going to tell you very specific things about Cortado, but it's just a smaller drink, right? And how we made it at Spro, and I have a link down in the description to a video that will show you how we made it back in the day at Spro. And I ended up having to watch it myself to make sure that I be ready today to make it for you here. But it's basically a 4-ounce drink that is made like a latte. You don't have to stretch the milk too much. You stretch it just a little bit, like you just want a little bit of foam riding on it. But you stretch it, and you're talking about 2 ounces of milk to 2 ounces of coffee. So it's a well-balanced drink overall. Like especially if you get the right milk and the right steaming, so it sweetens the milk, and then you have this nice contrasty or complementary coffee to offset that milk. Man, it can be just a delicious, delicious drink. And so hopefully we'll be able to hit some of that today. Who knows? We didn't do very well with cappuccinos yesterday, but that's kind of generally the idea behind Cortado. And yeah, we're just gonna make it. But let's get into our bread here, so we can see what's in the bread here. This is the Ube Loaf. We're going to open it up. How you open it up? Is there Oh, here's the seam. I'm like, where's the seam? So what is in here? Ingredients are eggs, sugar, flour, butter, yeast. Wow, so here it says here eggs, sugar, flour, butter, yeast, milk, purple yam. This just seems, I mean, I would have to look at my recipes, but that seems odd. Like when you talk about labeling in food manufacturing in America, you're supposed to be listing your ingredients from largest quantity to smallest quantity, right? So salt, purple yam, okay, that makes sense. But the eggs, well, there's more eggs than the rest. Huh, interesting. All right. So as you can see, like I remember I mentioned that they roll it up. So we're going to take the whole loaf out of here if we can. Actually, it's sticking. Okay, maybe we can't. But as you can see, I'll just tear it open. Marcus says, when do you have half and half? When you do have half and half, maybe you can make a bread. Okay, we will. Once I have half and half, maybe we'll do that next week. Yeah, I will get that, and we will be able to we can do half and half week. Non-stop, just like lack of creativity on YouTube just leads to live streams that just repeat the general theme. Okay, so as you can see here, here's our loaves. And you can see that there are 3 individual loaves. Like I mentioned, when you're making traditional style Japanese shokupan, which uses a Tongjo method of hydration, which I wonder if they've done this. Now, Tongjo method of hydration is you're taking your flour, you're taking just a small percentage of the flour that you're going to use in the final bread, and you're mixing it with milk, and you're heating it in a pan. And what you're doing is by heating the flour, you can increase its ability to absorb water, right? Flour in its natural state will only absorb X amount of moisture, of liquid, right, of water. Heating it allows it to absorb X plus, so you get better hydration of your bread, of your dough, and you get more greater moisture content. And when you make Tongzhou style shokupan, which is my favorite type of bread in the world, it is, to me, it is the greatest bread ever made. Like, for toasting bread, right? Like toasting bread, you slice it and then you toast it, and for whatever that whole hydration thing, whatever they do with it, I never studied why. I just ate. Right, that's the whole thing. I just ate. You slice this bread, especially when you slice it nice and thick, and then you toast it. And I like to have a brown toast. Again, I always like that textural juxtaposition of crunchy and soft. And this bread, when you get it, especially get thick, and you toast it really well, it becomes very crunchy on the outside, and then the inside is still chewy and tender. You're like, oh man. To me, it is like toast perfection. So I wonder if this is going to be similar in its style. So we're gonna find we're not gonna toast it, but we're gonna at least cut into it. And I'm actually at a dilemma right now, because as you can see, we've got what they must do is they roll, they form the dough, hydrate it, then let it rise, and then looks like they're probably, rolling it out somewhat, and then they're putting the halaya, the ube jam on it, and then they roll it, and then they put them in the molds like this. So we've got now, typically with a slice of bread, you're going to cut it crosswise instead of, or actually you're going to cut it, you're going to cut it crosswise instead of lengthwise, right? I don't know, or something like that. But no, you're going to cut it lengthwise instead of crosswise. But because it's rolled, I think it might be more interesting visually to cut it this way. Right? Maybe we'll do that. And because let's start with the most lofty one. We're going to tear it open. Oh, nice. Let's start off with a slice this way. Okay, there we go. There's a little bit. So let's have a taste. We're going to taste this. The crumb, let's look at the crumb. The crumb is pretty tight. So maybe we're going to see. I don't know. Is it Tongzhou? I don't know. I'm going to say no. Meaning that it's not Tongzhou style where you're hydrating the flour with heat before you mix it into the rest of the flour. It's nice. It's nice. How about with some butter? I've got some Kerrygold here. And, as you can see, I have this butter. That's some butter. I like the Kerrygold. For a commercial butter, it's actually very good. So put a little bit of butter there. Does that enhance it? No. I'm going to put more butter just because, we want to see, can we make it better? The first time that I've had where butter doesn't necessarily add to the bread eating experience. Strange. Okay, so now that we had a taste of that, but the crumb though, the bread, the dough is actually quite nice. It's actually a little bit sweet. So, and actually, I'm enjoying the sweetness of it, but I kind of want to peel this off because I'm like, I can eat this without guilt-free versus eating the whole loaf, right? Okay, not bad. Now, let's say Cortado. We're going to put the Cortado with this. So Cortado, as we would do it at Spur, we spent a lot of time figuring out what kind of recipe we were going to do for all of our drinks. And what we decided was the Cortado is a 4-ounce drink. And, when you go to like coffee shops, you may let's say cappuccino is a great example. Can I get a large cappuccino? What is a large cappuccino? Right. And to my mind, and this is where I'm going to bring the dogma out, is that there are drinks that have very specific definitions. Cappuccino is one of them, right? Cappuccino should be 6 ounces with the rule of thirds, right? If you're outside of that, it's just a latte or something else, right? It's not really cappuccino. Cortado's kind of the same way, and the way that I think is easiest to make things like cortado or cappuccino, like cappuccino, I said, it's a 6 ounce drink. So we have a glass, a mug or cup just for cappuccino. So it makes it very easy to make the cappuccino. So conversely, or along that lines, we also have a dedicated glass for the cortado, a 4-ounce glass. So this is actually a little bit bigger than 4 ounces. This is not the glass we used at Spro. This is just a glass I have here. I measured. It's actually 5 ounces, but I don't know what happened to the other glasses. So I've got 2 glasses for 5 ounces. One is a rock style Gibraltar glass, and one is this kind of fluted glass. We're going to use the fluted because it's kind of pretty, right? So we're going to take that. We're going to get our pitcher, small 12-ounce pitcher, and we're just going to fill it with some regular old whole milk. Right? Just put some milk in here. And because it's less than a cappuccino, you don't need as much foam. You don't need as much milk. Maybe just about that much, right? Maybe that much is good. And then we can finally go to making the coffee. So let's go and make the coffee. We're here now at the machine, and as always, look, there's some coffee is dry here. Just got to make sure your thing is clean, and then maybe a little bit of wiping there just in case. And then we can flush the group head to see, the machine's been sitting for a while, so we want to make sure we get through any kind of hotness, right? So you can hear that sizzling coming out of the group head. Okay, that sizzle subsided, so we're going to be stopping there. And now we're grinding. Oh, we'll get rid of a little bit of the old growth coffee from yesterday. And now we've got our coffee here. A little bit of bouldering, but actually overall, it looks like it has, it has fallen into the basket fairly evenly. There's a little bit of a valley there. So that's a really simple, just a quick swipe has covered that up. Come back. And now we're pretty much done. Like, that's really all that I need. I'm going to have a lot of mounding here, so we get rid of that. For that, okay, good. That was fairly simple. Sometimes it's easier than others. Okay, nice and clean. Everything looks good. Now we're going to pull our shot. We're just going to go for the drink. We're going to go for the drink. We're not going to do a test shot. I'm going to put that in there. Oh, that doesn't look too bad. See that shaky right there? We're going to stop it right there. See how it kind of started to bob? That's where we're going to stop. Now we need to get to our milk steaming. So flush out the group head. Then, here we go. Now with this one, we don't have to stretch as much as cappuccino. We'll just stretch a little bit. And I just want to roll it. What I'm trying to do is always keep it rolling, right? So you can see how it's rolling. That's what you want. Now my fingers are starting to get burned. Yeah, see this, the way this thing steams, and this milk is so strange. Like, look how big the bubbles are. Right? Those are huge bubbles. That should not be the case. I think there might be something. In the times that I've had that kind of issue with our old supplier, it would be a homogenization issue, right? The homogenization. When you milk the cows, it has milk fat in them. So what they actually do for milk production is they take all the fat, they strip it out of the milk completely and separate it. And then what they have is left is basically skim milk, right? This kind of milky water. And then when they make all the milks, so they make 1%, 2%, 3.5%, which is whole milk, 10%, which is half, and then 35%, 40%, which is heavy. When they make those milks, they actually add the percentage of the fat back into the liquid, the water. But in order for it to remain like we're used to, where the fats don't separate, they have to homogenize it. So what they do is they pressurize it and they push it through these homogenization screens that somehow emulsify the fats into the liquid, and they don't come out of solution. For whatever reason, one of the dairies explained this to me, that it gets this foaminess, that big bubbles, because the screens are wearing out or something like that. I'm not sure. Oh, what I'm doing now is, because there was big separation, I'm tapping and swirling, trying to reincorporate. And look at that crema. Crema is just holding well. Beautiful. Now, it's very thick. I did put too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take the other pitcher, this larger pitcher, and I'm going to move it into there. Why am I doing this? Because I'm trying to reincorporate the foam into the milk, right? Because I want to have a nice emulsification of that. I want it all to be together. And that kind of assists in that. So part of the reason we're tapping and swirling is not just to get all of that reincorporated because it sat for a while, but also because the milk was kind of big bubbles, and we want to make sure we're tapping it to try to break it up. Now, if you look really close on the side walls, it's kind of hard to see because of the angle, but see those bubbles? You can see those bubbles now. To me, those are too big. I'm unhappy with those bubbles. Like, I want it to be small. But look at that crema still holding together. That's really, really surprising. Okay, so now we're going to pour. I'm going to pour pretty forcefully. Oh, that's not good. Yeah, see, this is the problem. This milk is problematic, because even though we had a good amount of foam, it doesn't hold, so it breaks down, and we have very little foam on the inside here. Let me show you this. Let me pull this camera off so we can see this. Here, I'm going to come here for the side view. Right, see how little foam there is. I mean, this is actually, for Cortado, this is okay. I would like just a little bit more foam, like maybe, but that much foaminess would be good. That would make me very happy. So, yeah, but it actually doesn't look terrible. Like, it doesn't. Actually, I'm going to take a glamour shot. All right. So, yeah, there it is. Not the greatest of cortados, but let's have a taste and see. You can see here, this is the top of it. Could have been a lot better. So part of the problem was this one is that the foam is so thin, right? You can look here. There's really nothing left inside there, which is good. You want to have very little waste, but you can see by the looseness of it, there really is no foam that's holding together. It all dissipates because of the bubble structure. And you can see here, the part of the problem with that is because it's so thin, it doesn't pour well, and it's more difficult to get some kind of design out of it. And there's some bubbles there, so we want to try to tap those out. And there it is. So let's give it a taste and see. Yeah, see, there's something. What's missing, and I do think there is an issue with the milk, is that it's just not sweet. Like, there's the structure of it is a little bit off. It's not the heating of it didn't sweeten the milk, so it could be a lot better. Maybe we'll do another one. But let's see how this pairs with our Ube Loaf. Maybe we should see, here's the thing. If you do a cross cut, right? Let's do a cross cut like you would, like if we were cutting it from here, right? We would cut it as a loaf normally. So now we have a preponderance of ube. And look at that. That's such a nice little bite. Why be so dainty, right? There's something nice about coffee with milk and ube in general. I'm starting to think, because that's fairly pleasant. The coffee definitely has a lot of bitterness to it. Okay, here's another slice. Let's try another slice. Interesting. But I'm not happy with the Cortado. I think we'll try one more time to see if we can get better results. At least for the milk. The milk, although I think we're still going to have issues with the bubbling, right? The bubbling and the whole thing coming out of solution. Or maybe we won't. Maybe it's just my bad technique. All right, let's prepare again. Let's get our milk together. Whoops. What I need to do is get a different milk. Okay, let's go back here. Oh, we got to clean up our steam wand. And then let's look at our puck, right? The puck. Oh, good, good. That's nice. Nice compaction, good coloration. Oh, and no residual oil. So we stopped everything just in the right spot. So that's great to see. Flush that out, make sure it's clean. And then now we're going to grind. Okay, so there, see, different again, right? There before the last one, there was just a little bit of divoting there. Now we got a little bit more boulders and more chasms there. So we're just going to sweep around as always. Come back a little bit low there. So I'm going to sweep in back ways. Just get rid of that little bit of mounding. There we go. Groom it just a little bit more back to the center. Oh, I think I jagged it. I did. Look at that. I jagged it just a little bit. And that feels, okay, here's something. I think we're going to have a bit of a different shot this time. I think it's going to go faster. Why? Because as I feel this feels, right? The relationship of the top edge of this tamper and the top edge of this basket is much lower, right? It's almost even with it, which tells me that I probably don't have enough coffee in here. So, but we're going to see that in the shot. We're going to see what happens in the shot. Actually, let's pull that shot and see what it looks like. Oh, maybe not. Maybe it's not too bad then. Good that we don't waste any coffee. But we're getting a little bit of wavering earlier on than the last one, I think. So let's stop now. Oh, there it is. See how it's jumping there? That is telling us that it's done. Now, one of the things to consider is that when you're making espresso, like especially if you're making it in a professional environment or even your home, I'm sure that it'll be the same. When you're feeling like in that moment, I feel that was kind of low. That's kind of like your go, no go set situation, right? Like, do you redo it, which means you dump the whole thing, or do you pull the shot and see what happens? And in this case, we did. And, it didn't turn out as poorly as I was concerned about, which is good. So now we flush that. And now we're going to go here and start to steam. So I'm going to try to show you, because the problem is that it starts to get hot. Right? Okay, so I've stretched it enough. Now I'm going to go deeper, but I want it to roll. Now it's starting to get warm. Once it starts to, once it reaches the source, see, look at that. Look at that. See how it just bursts into bubbles? That is exactly the problem that I'm talking about. This is when your milk does this, you're pretty much toasted. Like there's not too much you can do except ride it all the way out with that milk. You know, at this, when milk turns out like this, you know that you're going to have issues with foam quality and steaming. And as you can see here, it's very, very like lofty and very thick. I'm going to transfer it to this picture again to see if we can get it a little bit more. I think one of the problems too from the last time, by doing that, we break up a lot of those bubbles and then they just don't have any foam left to them. There's no structure to them. So we just lose so much by doing that. Look at that crema. Gosh, that crema is holding well. Look at that stripe. It's kind of like the Milky Way galaxy through there. All right, let's see what we can get out of this. Let's see if we can get anything of interest. Yeah, there's really no foam in this thing. Oh, maybe a little bit. Oh, look at that terrible. Look at that terrible. Terrible. Maybe that's more me. Okay, that's not so pretty. All right, let's bring the camera around here and have a look at the side view. Not bad. Okay, that's not bad. Could be worse. All right. All right. So one of the things I want to touch on also, because it reminds me as I'm holding this pitcher while steaming, is that when I'm steaming milk, I actually hold the pitcher. How do I hold it? I hold it like, is that right? Yeah, I guess I hold it like this, right? My four fingers are holding onto the pitcher like this, and then I use my separate hand. Now, when I was steaming, I assume it's for support. Now, when I was steaming here and I'm holding the camera, I'm actually holding it all the way here. The problem is that, you know, the milk is heating, right? So the milk starts off, let's say 40 degrees. And then you start to add heat to it. And you're bringing out, that target temperature of the milk is about somewhere between 155 to 175, depending on the drink that you're making. So as it heats, I'm actually, you know, if you held on to it, you would eventually scald your fingers because it would be too hot for you to hold. But I use my fingers, my opposing fingers, as well as my pinky. So usually I'm steaming the milk like this. So my pinky is actually touching the pitcher. But it's also not supporting the pitcher, right? If I held it in such a way, then I couldn't pull the pinky away when it got too hot. So you'd start to scald your pinky. So I hold it in a way that I can do this, and I'm doing this a lot of times, and I'm holding on the opposing side. And the opposing side is really just so I have better control in how I rotate the angle, right? So if I'm rotating the angle around, trying to get the milk to swirl. I like to have the wand down here, and this I think of it in quadrants, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I like the lower left quadrant, and I try to keep it so that the milk rotates in this direction, in a counterclockwise direction. And the idea is that not just is it rotating this way, but it's also rotating this way, right? And that rotation, that kind of elliptical travel of the milk pushes the foam back into the water and reincorporates it. So everything stays hydrated and everything stays together. Because as you've seen when we're talking here with this pitcher and these two steamings, the milk actually separates pretty quickly. And so it becomes more difficult to just swirl it back together. And that's why I had to transfer the two, so that basically I'm getting more of this sloshing action that will actually try to reincorporate the foam with the milk. It's not always successful. It's a little more of a difficult path. So it's much better if once you finish steaming and you know that you're not pouring immediately, that you keep, you know, your hand on your pitcher and you keep this swirling motion, right? And the nice thing is if you have a countertop, you just need to have it in this really, if I'm exaggerating it, it's really like this, right? So it's really this circular motion like that, but it's really just quick. It's really just kind of small. And all you really need is some small circles with a good amount of force. Like I'm giving it a good amount of force to really push it around and try to keep that incorporated. And if you do the technique correctly, once you get it down, you can actually do this for a very long time. Like for example, let's say you're working in tandem with another person, and you're pulling shots, and you're making. So like if this is a great situation, an example. Let's say you're working in a coffee shop and you're making, working with another barista, and you're working in tandem, and he's pulling the shots, you're making the milk. So he's got the shot rolling, and so you start steaming the milk. You're like, okay, ready. So once he's finished, you pour it on, and then you serve it. Let's say something happens and he mucks it up, and he has to re-pull the shot again. Now you've got another 45 seconds to a minute, but your milk's already done. If you sat this down and let it wait, it would die, and you'd have a lot more problems. But if you sat there and you just kept on spinning it, you would hold that. You could hold that emulsion of the foam with the milk almost indefinitely, right? It'd be a very long time before it would be unsalvageable. The big thing you have to worry about now is like how much heat are you dissipating in that time that you're waiting for the next shot to be pulled. So that's something to keep in mind. But like I said, I wanted to have an elliptical pattern with the steam, so that I'm holding the pitcher in a way that keeps that elliptical pattern, so I don't have to do too much work. And all I'm doing now is just dropping the pitcher, right? So I'm once I get that position, I'm riding right on the edge of the foam, the milk, so that I can inject the steam with the milk to create the foam. And as the foam increases in volume, I'm actually dropping the pitcher down further to keep the nozzle riding right on the edge of that milk. But you only have a small window for that, right? So you've got 40 degrees. Let's say 40 degrees is your milk temperature. Once you put it in the pitcher, you really only have 60-degree window up to 100 degrees Fahrenheit before you actually need to like stop stretching and start combining, right? So, and why is that? Because once you get past that 100-degree threshold, the quality of the foam that you could create is impacted by the temperature. It's not going to be as texturally nice. So it's better for you to do all. So you want to get all your stretching right away. So whenever you see like a skilled barista, when they start the steam, they'll always start with full power too. Like some people will start off, and especially when they're trying to learn, oh, I just put a little bit. But really what you want is full power, as much power as the machine will give you to really get that to like foam and to swirl. And then you see them dropping it. And it can be fairly aggressive, the drop, right? But you got to remember that the more aggressive you have to have a balance. You want to have an aggressive drop, but you also want to have a controlled drop, because the more aggressive you get, the more physical space that you give between the nozzle and the milk, the greater size the bubble, right? So if you're riding it right on the edge, there's just very little air for it to get into it. But if you give it a big jump, it starts to impact the milk and then create big bubbles, right? So you don't want that. You want it to be like right on the edge. And then you want to drop it. And then finally, once you drop it, you get to the volume that you want. And then you want to go deeper with it. Then you push the wand down into the bottom, and you're trying to keep it still in that orientation, so that you're still getting that elliptical rotation of the milk. And what you're doing is that you're actually trying to. What I end up doing is I'm actually changing the orientation of the pitcher depending on how that's happening, right? So it may look from afar that it's nothing too much is going on, and I'm just holding it, but really I'm paying attention to the swirl, and I'm actually trying to control that and adjust the angle of the pitcher to keep that going. So some things that you might want to consider or think about to work on for your technique. Hopefully that'll help. But let's have a look at our Cortado. Not too ugly. Well, it looks like it has eyes. I don't know what's up with that, but let's have a taste. That's not better. There's something, the milk, I mean, I hate to be the one that blames other things, but there's definitely an issue with the milk. That the milk is definitely wonky. It's not that it's old. It's dated March 2nd, right? So March 2nd. So this is fairly fresh milk, but there's something about the milk that is just not working out well. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. All right. So let's go back to our bread. So the bread is nice. It's a nice bread. And I know a lot of you guys aren't from this area, so I think you could probably order online if you want. I've got a link to the Gwenies website down below in case you're interested. It's interesting to check out. I would say that, especially if you're in a part of the world that has Filipino bakeries, see if they have something like this. They probably do. Let's see, more eating. It'd be at least worth an exploration. Yeah, not bad. See, but here's the problem with the milk, right? The espresso has naturally bitter tendencies to it, like bitter notes, dark chocolate, things like that. Ideally, your milk is going to be steamed in a way that's going to develop better sweetness. So that sweetness will balance out that harshness of the espresso. This milk is not doing that. And I'm not heating it to like really, really high temperatures. I'm probably heating it to about 165 degrees. You start to get really adverse effect to the flavor of the milk if you go to like above 175, like 180, 185. So I'm a bit disappointed. All right. Well, that's pretty much all I have for you today. Hope that helps. And yeah, if you have questions or thoughts about future episodes we can do, let me know. I'm interested to know what you think. Back again tomorrow with more of the coffee Q&A. Tomorrow we're going to be doing something that's a little bit different. A little bit different, but a little bit the same. Back to Americano things, or sort of Americano. But we're going to be looking at something called the Shiranui oranges, originally from Japan, but they're actually grown in America, I think now. Right? But we'll be back to do that tomorrow. So hope you have a great one, and see you next time.